my tricycle license. Today we are going to be talking about our ice bike and how we've been upgrading it so far. So first of all, let's start with the back and work to the front. Now I'm not sure if you can see it. I'll try to zoom it in, but in the back we added a disc brake because fortunately the manufacturer gave us two options to go with. They either gave us a V-brake that is located underneath the frame, and we'll talk about that in a second, and they also gave us a disc brake mount. So what I chose to do, when we received the bike, and the manufacturer already gave us a pair of V-brakes. But since I know that having the V-brakes underneath the frame like this, in the past, manufacturers tried this mount the way it mounts, and they discovered with like mountain bikes from, I think they tried this in the 80s, which means they mounted the V-brake underneath the frame. That they found out it collected a lot of mud and debris that would collect on the pads and on the V-brake itself. So, which in turns a decrease in braking power. So that's why I went ahead and took off the V-brakes, and then I bought I would call these semi-hydraulic brakes, because it is a hydraulic brake, but the thing is, in a traditional hydraulic brake, you have the brake fluid at the lever to the caliper. In this case, we have a disc brake caliper that has the hydraulic fluid inside the caliper, actuated by a cable. So the idea is that it's easier to maintain because it's a traditional cable driven system, and it's also a hydraulic system at the caliper. The branding is Zoom. That's who makes this hydraulic brake, or we can call it a semi-hydraulic brake, because it's not a full, a traditional hydraulic brake. The rotor size, I would say it's about 140 millimeter to 160, probably 140, I think. But with that said, it's not too. It sounds small, but regarding the lightness of the bike and we hardly use this brake at all. I just installed it on there because I wanted to test out the semi-automatic hydraulic brake system that this is. Plus, I found that it's anodized red, so it would also match the bike frame, semi. Obviously not exact, but pretty close. And to, again, having have it cable driven is easier to deal with and take care of than if the whole system was hydraulic. Say, for example, if you are riding it and you run over like a branch or something and get the cable caught, puncture your brake housing with the hydraulic fluid, you lose your brake. Especially if you need it going down the hill. Um, and that is exactly why I chose this brake, besides I wanted to test it out. That I knew that the front brakes are going to be more than what the bike needs to stop. But, you know, just in case that we have it fully loaded and going downhill, you have all this weight and momentum pushing the bike downhill, and gravity, of course. But what might happen is the brakes, as they're being used, go downhill. They might get too hot, start to fail, and so basically, having the back brake or having the back disc brake allows you to have the option of, oh, I need to start now because my front brakes are heating up and starting to fade. Would be our upgrade in the back. As we go forward to the front, there's not much changes I had done to it in the middle, really. It's about the same as when I had it. However, as we're going up towards the front, I did add a Garmin computer, which is a computer that runs off a satellite GPS, and yes, this had a computer that was ran by a sensor at the wheel, but I had to change that battery, and I discovered that the bike didn't come with a book for the computer. A really hard time programming it, but I found this computer, like I said, Garmin. Hopefully I said that right. That you don't need to really program it. Obviously, as long as it hooks up to the satellite, that it'll give you a pretty accurate reading. Plus, it has other functions like it will record your ride in a virtual map. You can virtually plug this into a computer afterwards, go onto their app, and see your ride. I think, but since this is the older version of their computer, I strictly only use it to see how fast I'm going, not exactly all the other functions it really has. Like I said, unfortunately, since it's an older version of it, it doesn't want to work with the app very well. But that's okay, because we don't need it for the other functions. We just need it for, telling us how fast we're going and stuff like that. So, and just so you know, I think I paid like $25 on buy and sell and trade locally for it. So it works out in the end. If I really wanted to use the other functions, I would have to buy a newer style computer. And then moving on to the crank, I also updated the crank to a robot crank that has a bigger sprocket. Now, what I mean by that is this is the original crank that came off of it, and bottom bracket I had to replace. This is made by SRAM. Now, what gearing this has is the smallest gear is a 26 tooth gear on the small end, and on the big end it's a 48 tooth gear. Now, the reason why I decided to upgrade it, or try to upgrade it, is because so at my speed that I can propel this bike, when I had this crank on there, was about I would say 13 and a half to 14 and a half miles an hour. I kind of felt that I was winding up the gear, and I kind of felt that I wanted my goal for this bike was going about 17 miles an hour, a good rate speed that for this bike that I could push. I thought it's plausible. So I went to a store that they were selling bicycle parts used, and I found this crank set made by Shimano, and it's like I said, it's a road bike crank set, and the biggest difference is, besides how many teeth it has, is that one has 2 gears to work with, while this one has 3, as you can see. So I think of course, the big one is 50 tooth sprocket, and the second one is probably in the 38, somewhere around there. So why did I downsize or downgrade in a sense? I took one of the gears away. Well, that's because whenever I would be out with this bike riding it and go up a hill, I was discovering that I can actually climb most hills with the big gear and keeping my top speed. Well, what I mean by that is about I can maintain about 8 to 10 miles an hour going up. So when I saw those, and if I have to use this small gear, then why not? The crank set has a bigger gear. I wanted to find out how fast this crank can make the bike can go. So I went to my local bike shop. I went ahead and ordered and bought a Shimano bomb bracket, because, like I said, this one that was on there was made by SRAM. It also had a SRAM bomb bracket, so you can't exactly switch from SRAM to a Shimano with the SRAM bomb bracket. They just don't, they don't go together quite right. So that's what I did. I think I paid about $30 to $38 for the bomb bracket. I paid for the crank used, that was about $25. So, if it didn't quite work out, that would be fine. I didn't break the bank to try to figure this out. So, I installed it, and I went out and test rode it, and I gained about 1.5 mile an hour faster. Really. So it went from having a cruising speed 13 and a half miles an hour to top speed of 14.5 miles an hour to a cruising speed of 14 miles an hour to about 15.5 miles an hour. So, not a huge gain, but, and you have to remember that's 2 teeth bigger than this. Usually you want to go up to a 52 or 56. We have a 56 tooth sprocket on our green speed aero bike, which I can do a video about that, upgrades about that on that bike, another video. But so yes, 2 teeth made a difference for me. I don't think I want to go any higher than a 56 on this, because there's gonna be a point where I'm not gonna have enough power to turn that crank, or um, something else you have to consider is I may not have enough power to like go up the hill and not downshift either. So there's always a balance where you kind of have to kind of compromise on your setup. So, oh yeah, another before I forget, another thing I did to it to make it more efficient was called the tubing that goes over the uh, chain that they're basically there to guide the chain, but they're also there to like for example this top part, there was one up here too that what obviously it was guiding the chain, but um its main function was to keep my clothing off the chain so my clothing don't get dirty. But what I discovered was when I took it off, um, it kind of took away some drag on the chain. So that too enabled me to have a more higher top and speed more efficiently. And yes, I made sure that the chain did not hit the frame. So of course I checked that before I continued on testing and stuff like that. As modifications go, I'm still trying to do more, but at this point in the game type of thing, what I discovered is that when I installed the bigger crank, that the chain had a lot of slack around the teeth of the sprocket, and I discovered that the chain was badly stretched out. What that means is it's time to replace the chain. And in turn, if the chain is that badly stretched, they do recommend you also replace the cassette on the back rim. What I discovered trying to find the cassette for this bike, and actually our green speed arrow shares the same cassette style. This cassette is a older style cassette. What I mean by that is the locking nut. I'll show it to you in the video. This locking nut is a lot smaller than your traditional cassette on your everyday road bike or mountain bike. So by having that smaller locking nut, they were able to make the gearing smaller on the last gear. So you have to remember that on a regular traditional cassette, starting with the smallest gear, it starts out with 11 tooth sprocket or 11 tooth gear. And this one, like I said, because of the smaller locking, they managed to make the smallest gear a 9-tooth gear. Obviously, that allows us to have a bigger top end speed. But why they chose this kind of cassette over a traditional kind of cassette is because of the rim size. So usually, what you need to do to make a 20-inch rim as fast as a 26, like this one right here, the rotations that it takes for the 20-inch rim to keep up with the 26-inch rim or higher is obviously more faster rotations. But to do that, you have to have smaller gears on your fast side. Not so. That will give you the top end speed of a traditional road bike or mountain bike sized rim bike and still have the 20-inch rim on the bike. So you might say, well, why don't you just get a bike that has a 26-inch rim or higher? You can use the traditional cassettes and stuff like that. But thing that you have to remember is when you're going up a hill or anything like that, it takes more energy and muscle to keep the 26-inch rims or higher and go up a hill. With 20-inch tires, rims, it doesn't take a lot to from a dead stop. It doesn't take a lot to get up to speed. These are pretty much kind of quick, but obviously the downside is they don't have or generally have the high top and speed as a 26-inch. That's why you usually go with a 26-inch and higher for the better top and speed, and on top of that for a better ride. Because obviously hitting a pothole with a 20-inch rim, it'll give you more of a jerk, more of a rough ride than a 26 or higher. But luckily this bike has full suspension, so you can kind of have that to make up for the rim size. But I kind of feel that having 20-inch rims all the way around or smaller, but having this type of gearing that enables you to still have the same top and speed, but easier to turn the rim. I think it's a big benefit actually, in my opinion, because like I said, I'm still able to get up to speed quick because of the rim size. It's geared right, even though that this cassette and hub is like the older style cassette. The downside that I came across so far is I had to pay. There's only certain companies that still make this cassette. I bought this cassette brand new, not this one in particular, but I bought one for the replacement around $100. And yes, that's pretty expensive for a cassette. It depends on what you want in the bike. Like, do you want it light? Do you want, the materials it's made from? But in this case, I bought it because it had the smaller locking nut or locking fastener that would work for this hub. And two, I needed to replace it because this one is wore out, just like the chain, and the chain is still nothing special. We can buy this chain in bike shops now today, so that's not going to cost us more than $60 or $70 of chain. And yes, we need roughly about three normal bike chains to link together to make one chain for this. So, but like I said, we don't have to just buy a specialty chain, so that's still good. It's just a cassette for this. It's going to cost us about, like I said, $100. But that's the name of the game. And our Green Speed Aero bike are more higher performance. They are from companies that put higher end components on these bikes. So, it's just what we have to go and do when we have to replace some of the parts. When the cassette finally gets in, I will make a video about how to install it, what type of tools that we need to do that with. It won't be that hard, but it may be a little time consuming, but nothing that you guys can't do if you have the same bike. And like I said, I'll make a video about how to install the chain and the cassette on this type of system. Thank you for watching the video at this point. If you're not subscribed already, please push on the buttons and ring on the bells. And until next time, bye for now.